This yin yoga practice has an intense focus on the hips. Postures will include Dragonfly, Sleeping Swan, Saddle, Dragon, and Frog Pose. So always useful props are several blankets, maybe a couple of pillows, and again, if you have a big giant puffy couch cushion or seat cushion of some kind, it might be particularly helpful during this practice. So cultivate your intention for practice, and if you're trying this practice from home, remember, if things are getting too intense for you, it's a video, so you can take a break, you can try the modifications, or you can just rest and skip a posture. So the practice starts with a little bit of prep work before we get into the yin postures. The first posture to get into is something that creates a sense of groundedness for you. Now I'm going to suggest the pose wide-legged child's pose, but if there's something else that you know that you can connect to and really bring yourself into the present moment, you can always try that too. Otherwise, if wide-legged child's pose sounds fine to you, then go ahead and bring yourself on the hands and knees. Again, maybe knees come wide, about mat width apart if you're using a mat. Maybe big toes touch, but they don't have to. And then sink your hips back towards your heels as far as they go until they stop. And lower your torso forward as far as it goes till it stops, and start to extend your arms forward till you settle here. Now if you're kind of hanging in midair and it feels unstable, then that's where you maybe grab a prop or two to let there be a little bit of comfort in this first posture. We're not staying here for yin time, we're just staying here to kind of gather our thoughts, gather our senses here for practice. So while you're just kind of residing here in whatever kind of grounded posture that you picked, then you pause and you begin to pay attention to your own being. You begin to pay attention to any sensations. This is a physical posture practice, Western practice, so certainly we tend to focus on the physical sensations, but there's also other things going on in our being. There's mental sensations, there's emotional qualities, there's spiritual qualities too, whatever we're doing here, and it's okay. It's okay to stop and notice those. So notice the contact that you make with the floor. Notice your inhales, your exhales, the movement that your body makes as it tries to accommodate your breath here. And if you can, maybe begin to slow your breath down. If your nose is clear, maybe see if you can just breathe through your nose with your mouth just very gently sealed shut. Maybe remind yourself of why you're actually practicing today. Just one more breath here, and then at some point, plant your hands, use your hands, your arms, slowly bring yourself up. This is not a hyper fast moving practice, so there's never really any reason to move too quickly in this practice, unless there's a fire alarm or something that goes off here. We'll go ahead and do a lateral bend before we get into the long-held yin postures. This lateral bend is called gate pose. So make your way to a kneeling position. Knees about hip width apart. Right underneath your hips, maybe grow nice and tall here. And then take your right leg and extend your right leg up to the right like an outrigger. Right foot is rooted into the ground, so it feels nice and solid. You feel nice and stable through the right foot and through your left shin here. And then reach your arms up and overhead, grow long through your torso here. And then very gently begin to laterally bend over the extended leg, over the right leg. So you can rest the right arm on that right leg and reach up and over with the left arm, opening up through the left side till you kind of find some resistance, find a stopping point here, and then maybe stay here and just notice. Notice again the inner landscape here of how this posture feels. Maybe reach up and over for one final breath. Bring yourself all the way back up, and then hands come down. Bring that right leg in. Come back to a kneeling position, and then the other side here. So rooted through the right knee, step the left leg out. Root through that left foot, reach your arms up overhead. And then gate pose on this side, so you can just rest that left arm down onto the ground. Reach in, up and over with the right arm. Until you kind of feel some natural resistance, and then stay there. Maybe for a breath, maybe for one more breath here. And then bring yourself back up. Hands come back down. And then you can bring this leg back in. And then from here, we'll move into the first long held yin posture. So this will be the first posture we hold for about 3 minutes. This sequence has a hip opening theme to it. So most of the postures here really do get into the hips. This first posture is called Dragonfly. So what you'll want to do, this is a wide-legged forward fold. So maybe come to seated, legs out in front. And you might want to sit up on some height. So I have 2 blankets here that I'm sitting on because I have a lot of tightness in my legs and my lower back. Even if you don't have any tightness in your legs and your lower back, maybe sitting up on a tiny little bit of height is actually a good idea. And then you slowly take your legs out wide. Now, wide is relative. You're going as wide as your legs go, not my legs. So maybe they can go wider than mine, or maybe they don't go as wide. You're finding your stopping point because you're feeling how you move, and as soon as you have enough sensation running through your legs or your hips, not pain, not anything that's creating trauma or injury, but just something that you can feel. That's basically your stopping point. And so then you can either choose to stay here and just marinate here, or the next step is to fold forward. So maybe grow up tall through your torso, move the top of your hip bone up and forward slightly, and then allow the rest of your torso to soften, round, and relax. Your arms and hands can be wherever they need to be comfortable here. Head and neck are soft too. Everything just rounds and hangs. And then if that feels accessible for you, that's where we'll stay for a few minutes. If that feels too unstable here in your torso, then you need to get some props to place underneath your torso to prop yourself up. Maybe some books, maybe a pile of pillows or a couch cushion, maybe even a chair here, just a chair. Check in with your breath. Notice. This is the time for you to walk through and notice what your sensations are. For some of us, this is too intense, running through our legs. So an alternative that you can try is you can just do half butterfly on each side, and a modification. So you can take your right leg, bend your right knee, bring your right heel in towards the center of your hip, and then bend forward this way. This at least releases the tension in one leg here. And so that might be a lot more acceptable to you than full dragonfly here. If you're doing this is asymmetrical. So you're only going to do this for about 1.5 minutes, and then you're going to switch to the other side here. So maybe about 5 more breaths here if you're doing half butterfly. If you're doing dragonfly, still got a couple more minutes to go or so. Otherwise, so remember the 3 principles of yin. First principle is called find your edge. Your edge is where you move your body into a particular shape, and you're moving by feel. So you're moving it to the point where you feel a stopping point, you start to feel some resistance and some sensation, some traction, some pressure, whatever your word for it is. And then that's where you stay, but not to the point where you're injuring yourself or you're creating trauma or pain. So that's That's where some investigation and experimentation is needed here. Second principle is called stillness. Once you've found an appropriate shape, appropriate edge for your body where you're feeling just enough, then you invite yourself to stay for a while. This can be challenging, particularly when the sensations can be intense and uncomfortable, not painful, but just something that we'd rather not be in. So we have to like convince ourselves is like, it's okay to be here. If you're doing half butterfly, you want to switch to the other side of half butterfly. So otherwise, if you're in Dragonfly, stay there. If you're doing other half butterfly, the right leg goes out to the right. You bend the left knee, bring the left heel in, and then fold forward here in this modified version of half butterfly. Otherwise, knees can be soft here in Dragonfly. If you're one of these people that you have your torso just comfortably resting on the floor, then you're going to have to dig a hole in the floor so that you can keep going further. I'm just kidding about that. What you can actually do is you can build props up underneath you so that your torso can go past vertical here. We're just going to be here for a couple more breaths here in Dragonfly. So if you've been here the whole time, we're about ready to come out, and time is actually the final ingredient. Time is actually what makes yin yin. So it's not the postures that we're doing necessarily. It's the attitude we're taking and this idea of staying for a while. But we're done staying in Dragonfly or in half butterfly here. So plant your hands, use your hands on the ground and the muscles in your arms to slowly lift yourself up. And if your torso is achy from that long forward fold, grow your torso tall first. You have some options here. You can lean back and lift your sternum up towards the ceiling to get a little bit of a back bend as a counter pose. You can also do gentle twists to work out the achiness here. Maybe you're deciding that it's the legs and the hips that need release, so you can go ahead and do that. You can do this gently, one leg at a time. You can even use your hands to pull that knee up and in rather than trying to over-engage the muscles. And then when you get everything kind of taken care of, make some little organic motions. Do some wiggling around just to work out the extra bits of stagnation that are going on here. This is the counter pose time, some time to just notice the release and reverberation of the posture. And then we'll move on to the next posture. Next posture is called Sleeping Swan. So gently make your way onto hands and knees. Come to all fours. And then from here, bring your left foot up between your hands. So you're coming into this low lunge. You might be inch your right knee back a few inches. And then take your left foot and inch it over to the right side of the yoga mat. Lower the left knee slowly and lower your hips towards the ground. Pay attention to what you're feeling in this left knee. And if it's painful, draw this left heel in closer to your hip to see if that helps with the injurious sensation here. If your hips are floating and that knee is achy, maybe you need a prop underneath that hip to help you stay stable. You can use a pillow or a blanket or a couch cushion. The pillow can go underneath your hip, maybe part ways between this front thigh here. For Swan, go ahead and lift your torso up into a graceful back bend here. It doesn't have to be a big back bend, just something where you're growing yourself up tall and back and maybe gazing up towards the ceiling. And then for Sleeping Swan, slowly, so you're paying attention to how the sensations build, lower your torso forward until you stop here. Now for some of us, we're on straight arms. Some of us, we're on forearms. Some of us, maybe we make it to the floor. Some of us, maybe we want something nice and soft underneath our torso. So you decide what kind of situation fits you best here. And then again, we'll stay here for about another 3 minutes or so. Now Sleeping Swan isn't for everyone. So if the intensity in this posture is too much, then an alternative is eye of the needle. And eye of the needle is where you slowly come out of sleeping swan, make your way onto your back, bend both knees, put your left ankle on your right thigh, left knee is bent and out wide. You can either stay here with everything on the floor if you're feeling a lot, or you draw that right leg in just as much as you need to feel some sensation, some pressure somewhere. And then check in with your breath, check in with your sensations here. So a couple more minutes to go, either in eye of the needle or in sleeping swan here. So an attitude that might be useful in any yoga practice, but maybe particularly a yin practice, is to adopt the attitude that your body, your being, is the grandest of a national park. So imagine, if you will, if you wandered into one of these fabulous national parks with majestic mountains, wonderful scenery, beautiful lakes and trees and streams, abundant wildlife. And the metaphor of all this is that this can be applied to your own being, your own body. This amazing place, this ecosystem of scenery and of life, vegetation, animals, rocks, water, air, sky. It's all there within your own body. So take on this attitude that you're noticing, you're becoming aware, you're fascinated by this spectacular place, which in this case is with you at all times. It's you, it's your own being here. About 5 more breaths, if that's appropriate. If you're wanting to come out, give yourself permission to come out early whenever you need to here. Got a long way to go in this sequence, so govern yourself appropriately as you watch, as you notice. So the metaphor is when you notice something in a national park, like a waterfall, it's like noticing some tension that might be running along the outside of your hip. When you notice a fresh breeze of air in a national park, it might be like noticing the fresh intake of air during an inhale and the release of air during an exhale. When you notice the quietness of your mind, it might be like noticing the clear blue sky, or maybe the puffy clouds, or the stars, or the sun, or the moon, in a clear sky that one often finds when wandering through a national park. So one more breath here. And then at some point, plant your hands, use your hands and your arms to lift yourself up into swan again. Swan is this gentle back bend here. And then from here, plant your hands, tuck the back toe, lift the back knee. See if you can press yourself back and up into a downward facing dog. And then stay there for a while. Root through your hands and your feet. Maybe take your dog for a walk. Maybe knees are bent. Maybe spine is long here. And you can do other things. You can do 3-legged dog. You can do kind of a hip opening dog here. Whatever you would like to do. And if you don't like downward facing dog, then bring yourself to your knees, maybe do a few cats and cows here. Some other kind of movement. Again, to notice the reverberation of that posture. And then we'll do the other side. Do the other side of sleeping swan here. So when you're ready, you'll come back to hands and knees. You can even come into it from downward facing dog if you like to come into it from that way. Otherwise, it's the other foot. It's the right foot that comes up. Inch the left knee back, and then start inching the right foot over to the left side of your mat. Lower the right knee to the ground. Lower your hips towards the ground. till they stop. If you're feeling unstable, maybe a prop underneath that hip. Otherwise, maybe arch your spine here just to get a mini opening of the front of your torso here. And then slowly begin to lower yourself down as far as you go. And maybe this is as far as you go today. Or maybe it's this far. Or maybe it's this far. Find your edge, find your stopping point. And maybe this is not going to work. So maybe eye of the needle is a better option here. So a few minutes on this side. And then explore. So this is, think of your being as this your own personal national park. It's very accessible for you. Now, the problem with national parks is maybe the real ones is maybe they're very far away, and maybe it's too resource intensive to go and visit a national park. And if that's the case, then you have other national parks that you can always enjoy, you can always visit. And that's the point to my comments here is a yoga practice can be like a visit to a national park. It's when you pause and enjoy your own being as if it was this great national park with all the splendor and the glory. And this idea of trying to maintain the complicated natural ecosystem in that national park in such a way that people can come in and enjoy looking at it and watching it and getting to be surrounded by it. This is happening all the time with our own body. We just need to pay attention and do this with ourselves. So this is kind of a break. Maybe some of us have been to national parks and we've been swept away by the beauty and the spectacular natural wonders. And yet we take for granted that our own bodies are just as complex. The ecology of our bodies is just as vast as mountain ranges and beaches and volcanoes and glacial ice sheets and vast deserts. If only that we take time. Well, if you're practicing yoga, particularly in yoga, you have the time to adopt that attitude with your own being. So I like to think of my own body as the first national park that one can explore and one can appreciate. Even if one cannot travel to real national parks. Or maybe you can, and there in a real national park, it's a reflection when you look out upon those vast vistas and abundant wildlife. What you see inside of yourself, or what you can see inside of yourself. So just one more breath here on this side. And then when you're ready, plant your hands, slowly bring yourself up, come back into Swan Pose. And then slowly come out however you would like. So plant your hands, tuck the back toe, lift the back knee. You can try downward facing dog again. Or you can do something else. I'd recommend my favorite counter pose after an outside hip opener like that is Windshield Wipers. And so for Windshield Wipers, you'll come to seated. Bend your knees, put your feet out front pretty wide. So feet about 2 feet apart, maybe mat width or so. Maybe hands behind your torso, lift your torso up and then bob your knees down to one side. Bring them back up to center, bob them down to the other side. And then go back and forth. Maybe just a couple more times to just loosen up the pressure that might be residing in those hip sockets. And then at some point, knees come back up. And then maybe just stay here and notice if there's anything else that's creating a little bit of reverberation from Sleeping Swan. And then whenever you're ready, the next yin posture is Saddle Pose. Saddle Pose might not be for everyone, so watch the demo. If you don't think it's for you, you can try Sphinx instead. So I'll demo Saddle first. Saddle's a pose where a couch cushion is a good thing if you have one here. So I'll take my couch cushion here and you'll place it on the yoga mat here. First stage of Saddle Pose is to sit back on or in between your heels. Knees together or knees apart. So you're picking the ones that's most accessible for you. So maybe sitting on your heels, a little bit easier than sitting in between your heels. Maybe knees wide, a little bit easier than knees together. And then if this is not working for you, if this trying to sit this way at all creates pain, then probably Sphinx is what you'd like to practice. Otherwise, take some height behind you. I'm lucky I have this couch cushion. Maybe I want more. Maybe I want a pillow on top of my couch cushion. And you'll start to lower yourself back onto this couch cushion. Any amount here. Maybe you don't make it. But if you do make it, then you just want to soften and settle and let your torso rest back here. And then take a moment to take stock of where the sensations are. I'm not talking about the subtle sensations. Usually in this pose there's some dramatic sensations. And you're actually paying attention to the dramatic sensation. Maybe running through your thighs. Maybe through your low back. Maybe in your ankles. Maybe in your knees. To figure out if this shape is appropriate for you. Maybe you're not feeling anything. Maybe you're here and it's like, well, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't feel anything. Well, it just means you need to go deeper into the posture. And to go deeper, maybe don't use the couch cushion. Maybe you don't need any props at all. So couch cushion goes over to the side and you just see if you can bring yourself all the way back to the ground here. And you can do things here. You can, if you want a little bit of a torso or shoulder stretch, you can raise your arms up overhead. Knees can float as long as they're not in pain. And then we'll stay here a couple more minutes. So for those of you who are finding this too painful to do, bring yourself up and into Sphinx pose. So for Sphinx, you'll just lay on your belly, legs comfortably extended out behind you. Bring your elbows underneath your shoulders, shoulder width apart. And then soften your torso, let your spine sag due to gravity. Set up a light compression in your lumbar, in your sacrum here. And this is very similar to saddle in that saddle is a back bend. So you're getting a back bend in here. You're actually lengthening out through the front side of your body, including the front side of your hips. So even though Sphinx is a little bit more of a spine-focused posture, most any posture you do in yoga has something to do with the hips, because most of the motion in our bodies originates from the hips here. So you can stay here in Sphinx, or if you're marinating in saddle, you can continue to marinate in saddle. Give yourself permission to come out if saddle gets too intense. The idea behind yin is you stay for as long as you can. Not for some preset time, but when you're trying to do a structured sequence, like I'm presenting here, then you have to pick some time sort of as goals, if you will, and most of the postures here are around 3.5 minutes that we're holding here. So maybe another minute or so here in this posture. So you have to go back to paying attention and reevaluating what you're feeling. Maybe the sensations have all changed now. Maybe you're not feeling anything anymore. Maybe you can get rid of a few props. Maybe you're feeling too much and you're thinking, this is actually pain. And then that's your cue to come out here. So maybe it's like visiting a national park where you're trying to climb one of the high peaks in the national park and it's getting a bit too much, too cold, too windy, a storm is moving in, you're miles from home, you have no appropriate clothing or no water. All the indications are it's time to turn back and head home. This is a good, wise way to experience a national park, and it's a good, wise way to experience yoga, is to give yourself permission to back off and head home when things get a little bit too intense here. So about 5 more breaths here, if that's appropriate. So we're talking about this metaphor of the national park of your own body, which you don't actually have to go and visit. It's wherever you're at is this amazing national park. There's a secondary park, I call it the second national park, because it is also something that most of us don't have to drive to or spend a lot of resources getting to. And that is the sky above us. All we have to do is get outside and look up. We have this very nice second national park that we can also explore. And again, we don't have to go anywhere to do this. Our bodies, our beings are right here. We can experience this national park, this complicated place of fascination. We can also just look at the sky, which is accessible to almost all of us as well. It too is a cosmic national park. And all you have to do is, again, find a clear patch of sky here. We're kind of done with saddle pose. So if you're in a deep version of saddle, time to come out. And the way out is to root your hands on either side of your torso, engage the front line of musculature in your torso. Maybe start to slowly roll your head and your neck and your shoulders up. And however you can, just kind of inch and groan your way up and out of saddle pose. Now your legs were deeply flexed. If you're in Sphinx, you can just lower your torso to the ground. But if you were in saddle, you probably want to extend your legs as if you were in Sphinx. Now you can do this softly, one leg at a time. Or you can do it more dramatically by doing downward facing dog, or maybe crocodile pose here, this forearm plank pose, just to extend the legs up. You don't have to stay here for very long. At some point, put your knees down onto the ground and make any other kind of organic movements that you need to kind of recover from saddle pose here. And then we'll get ready for the next yin posture. The next yin posture is dragon pose. So for dragon pose, come onto hands and knees. From here, bring your left foot up in between your hands. So we're coming into a low lunge again, like we did for sleeping swan, except we're going to stay here in the low lunge. Inch the right knee back. And if that right knee is in pain, or put some extra padding underneath that right knee, or it might be the ankle. So put the padding underneath the shin to create space for both the knee and the ankle. Maybe your hands up front aren't wrenching, and so you can take some extra props. Maybe you have some books, so you can place some books underneath your hands here. But well, maybe you try what I call low flying dragon. And low flying dragon is you take this left foot, you move it out to the edge a few inches. Take your left arm and sweep it on the inside of that leg. And then you can stay here. Maybe that's enough intensity. Or you can walk yourself down onto your forearms. Maybe your forearms don't reach, so this is where you grab some books to place underneath your elbows here. And then see how this feels. Now if this is too painful, it means maybe regular dragon is okay. So you just come back to regular dragon here. If neither of these is working, the alternative is inverted dragon. An inverted dragon is you make your way onto your back. Right leg is extended, left knee is bent, and you begin by just drawing the left knee into your torso. Maybe you feel enough here, so this is where you stay. Or you can come into half happy baby pose by bringing this left knee out to the left armpit. Raise the shin and the ankle so that the bottom of the foot is pointed up towards the ceiling, and maybe clasp the bottom of the foot with your hands and just allow that left knee to drift down to the floor. And if that's getting too intense, you can always release and maybe just hug the thigh here. Otherwise, maybe you're hanging out in dragon, or maybe you're hanging out in low-flying dragon, and maybe you're asking yourself, what does all this intensity and agony have to do with the national park? And it has to do with your attitude. So maybe you're here and you're kind of like suffering a little bit, and it's like, well, all I feel is a bunch of like discomfort, and I'm distracted and I'm feeling desperate. And the idea is, well, is it real pain? Is it, then you do need to do something else. But as if it's just discomfort, what you're experiencing is you're just experiencing the stopping points of your own body. That's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And you can decide how you want to respond. Now, for many of us, when we go to a national park, or we look up at a clear sky at night, see the vastness of space, we choose the attitude of awe and wonder and amazement. You can actually do that with your own body. You can choose the attitude of awe and of wonder and amazement at the very traction and pressure that you're feeling in your own body here. Just about 5 more breaths here in Dragon. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. It'll always come out here. So instead of saying, oh, I'm so tight, or oh, those are a bunch of ugly trees, or oh, there's that boring Milky Way again, you can say, those are the tallest, most amazing ancient trees I've ever seen. Or look at the infinite amount of stars I can see in the Milky Way. Or, wow, I can actually feel the traction on the fascia, on the ligaments, on the muscles running through my own being. That's pretty cool. We'll slowly come out of Dragon here. So if you're in low-flying Dragon, plant your hands, bring yourself up. Bring this left foot in to bring your left arm around the left foot. Come into maybe regular Dragon here for a moment. And then slowly come out of Dragon however you wish. You can try downward facing dog again here. So plant your hands, bring the back knee up, bring the front foot back, and just spend a few moments in this yang posture here to balance out the long yin hold. And again, this is optional. This is this kind of optional movement between yoga postures. And so you can always do something else for a couple more breaths here. But we do have the other side of Dragon to do, so we might as well get to it. So back to hands and knees, and now it's the other foot. I think it's the right foot this time. So right foot comes up between your hands, inch the left knee back, and decide if you need padding underneath this back leg. If you have blankets and pillows around, you got lots of padding to choose from here. And you can either choose to stay in basic Dragon. Maybe you want to do upside down Dragon. Maybe you would like to try low flying Dragon. So for low flying Dragon, move this right foot out to the right. Sweep the right arm on the inside of the leg. And then either stay up on straight arms like this, or maybe make it down onto some books, or maybe make it down onto your forearms here. Move by feel. So notice how your sensations are building here, and stop when it's appropriate for you. And when it's appropriate for you will be different, because Your body is unique. Your range of motion is unique. The shape that you're going to make to create traction, to find the stopping points, to admire the stopping points in the traction will be different. It's just like there's different national parks in the world. There's different objects in the night sky. And they're not all the same. And part of the appreciation is the vast diversity in the different kinds of scenery in ecosystems and wildlife and stars and galaxies and planets and things you can see in the sky and in the natural world. Same thing with your body. Each shape is a different national park. You're exploring different aspects of a very complicated being, infinitely so, and infinitely diverse. And if we start to develop this attitude that that's what we're doing, when we come to a yoga practice or almost any exercise practice, it becomes a lot more interesting. Notice if dragon is becoming interesting for you. Come back and check in with your breath. Notice how the sensations are doing in this front leg, in this hip, maybe down through this back thigh. Maybe they're too intense. Maybe you need to back off. Maybe you can say, okay, I think I've had enough of this, I need to come out. Or maybe you want to stay and linger for just a little while longer to notice the vastness of this national park that is your own being. So about 5 more breaths here. When you're ready to come out, if you're in load flying dragon like I am, plant your hands, use your hands and your arms to press your torso up. Maybe come back into basic dragon here. And then when you get back into basic dragon, slowly make your way out. It can be downward facing dog, maybe it can be something else. Maybe you want to do a hamstring stretch or something before you come out of dragon pose here. And then at some point do come out here. And you can work out the kinks for a few breaths. The next and final long-held hip opening yin posture is a posture known as frog pose. So I always invite people to just try wide-legged child's pose to begin with. I call wide-legged child's pose baby frog. So the first stage is to just sit on your heels and then bring your knees wide apart. You can be mat width, just like wide-legged child's pose. For some of you, maybe they can go really wide here. And then the next stage is to allow your torso to slowly lower forward, any amount. So you can just stay here up on your arms, or get to forearms, or get all the way down to the floor here. Or if you have this big, giant, cushy furniture cushion of some type, then maybe place that underneath your torso here. So this is the first stage to frog pose. And for a lot of us, we're feeling enough in our hips, so we don't need to go anywhere. This is where we can stay for a few minutes. However, some of us might want a little bit more of a dramatic hip opener. Maybe we want to go on that challenging hike or that raft trip down cascading rivers here. In which case you can go a little bit deeper into frog. You can go into what's called full frog. So full frog is to maybe lean forward, torso is up. Bring your heels out away from each other. So I'm trying to line up my shins, am I moving them away? And I'm trying to line up my hips with my knees here. Notice that I strategically have my knees and my ankles on my yoga mat so that there's some padding underneath them, because the pressure can get pretty intense there. But I'm more interested in the pressure in my hips more than the pressure in my knees here. Knees go out as wide as they can. Torso can stay up, or you can come down onto forearms. You can come all the way down onto your torso if this is accessible for you. If this is creating too many pressure points, and in your ankles, in your knees, maybe your torso is something you can use lots of props to make this a little bit more accessible. So if you're in frog, your version of frog, stay there. If you're needing a little bit of help with some padding, if you have a couple of blankets, I'm going to use pillows to go underneath your knees. So I'm placing the pillows where my knees and my ankles were. And then I'm going to place this big couch cushion out in front. And now I'm coming back into full frog. So knees come out wide to either side of my hips. Notice now that my knees and my ankles are all have a nice cushy pillow underneath one of them. Hoo hoo. So that pretty much eliminates any kind of really intense pressure for me in my knees and my ankles here. And now I can take this big couch cushion, place it underneath my hips and my torso, and then I can luxuriate on this really soft couch cushion here. Now I'm still feeling the intensity in my hips, which is the intended purpose of frog pose here. But the rest of my body is not having to suffer to do this posture. So my knees, my ankles, they're really happy with pillows underneath them, and I can actually just kind of hang out here on this nice soft cushion if you have them. Don't have to use any of this stuff, but it is a lot more intense. The pressure underneath the knees and the ankles can get to be a bit too much here. If you've been here, then notice the being of your national park. Notice your breath. Notice where the intensity is. Just for a couple more breaths here. And then when you're feeling ready to come out, if you're not using a lot of props and you're in full frog, it's probably easiest to slide your hips forward, lower your torso down onto the ground, and slowly bring your legs back together. And you can gently windshield wiper your legs back and forth here. And then when you feel ready, bring yourself up to seated. When you get there, clear your mat of props. So put your couch cushion away, put your pillows away, you have them, and then just come to lie on your back. Initially, legs out in front, and then just extend your arms overhead, maybe interlace your fingers, point your palms towards the wall behind you, and just grow long here for a moment. So a few breaths here, just feeling yourself in full extension here. And then release your arms, gently bend your knees, place your feet on the floor. From your head, neck, and shoulders, resting comfortably on the floor. Draw your right leg into your torso, maybe clasp behind your right thigh with your hands, and then extend your right leg up towards the ceiling, just as straight as it will go. So you're pressing that heel towards the ceiling here. And then you can stay here, or you can lengthen out through the left leg. Let the left leg just gently rest back down onto the floor. And slowly draw that right leg in towards the wall behind you as far as it goes until you're feeling some good oomph here. And just maybe hold this for a breath. So we're done with the long held yin posture. This is a little bit of integration. And then you can go ahead and release. Bend the knees, put the feet back onto the floor. Now it's the left leg. Draw the left leg in, clasp the left thigh with the hands, and then reach the left leg up towards the ceiling. Press that heel up towards the ceiling. Right leg can stay right where it is, or you can extend the right leg along the floor. And then draw this left leg in until you're feeling a lot of oomph. Don't worry about where your left leg is at. Just going until you feel a little bit of something. One more breath here. And then bend the left leg, place the left foot on the floor, bend the right leg, put both knees bent, feet are on the floor. And then draw the right knee in towards your torso. Extend the left leg along the floor. And then take your left hand, place it on the right knee. Maybe inch your hips over to the right an inch or two, and then sweep the right knee over to the left. So we're coming into a spinal twist. So the right hip stacks on top of the left, right shoulder is trying to ooze back towards the ground here. This is as far as it goes. And then knee settles. Your right hand can reach out, in an outrigger position. Head can be neutral. It's okay with your neck. You can turn and face the right side. Maybe look down your right arm here. And just breathe into the spinal twist. One more breath here. Bring that knee back up. Bend both knees. Draw the left knee into your chest. Extend the right knee out. Maybe shift the hips to the left a little. Take the right hand to sweep the left knee across. Come into a spinal twist on the other side. So hips are stacked and the upper torso is oozing back towards the left. Left arm extends out. Head can stay neutral, or you could look out along that left arm. And just a couple of breaths here. And then bring that left knee back up. Maybe bend both knees. Bring them in, give your knees a nice hug. And then from here, begin to move yourself into a supported resting pose. Something that does bring a deep sense of groundedness to you. So it can be a traditional version of what's known as Shavasana, which is just lying on the ground, arms and legs extended. But for some of us, this is maybe doesn't feel very comfortable or supported. So you can do other things. You can do legs up the wall if you have your own favorite restorative posture. This is the time to practice it. You can also do things like just sit quietly in a meditative seat here. Use any props that you need. Make sure your head and your neck are comfortable. Soften your face. Eyes are soft. They can be closed. They can also stay open here. But take some time. Take some time to wiggle around and fidget. Find something that does feel stable and secure and safe. And then drop off the customs of an over-busy urban lifestyle. Do adopt this idea of stepping into a pristine and peaceful national park. Notice the breeze, which is metaphor for your inhales and your exhales. Maybe you can notice your circulatory system, your pulse, which is metaphor for all the brooks and streams and running water in that national park. Notice the subtle sensations. Maybe they're clouds, maybe they're mountains, there's trees, there's wildlife. So the idea to this visualization and this Shavasana is to release yourself from a technical, overbusy, sophisticated urban life and allow yourself to check in with your natural being. this is what we experience when we go to natural parks. We're getting a glimpse of what our environment was like before we created a human infrastructure around it. And the idea behind it is we are originally, natural beings, just like the national parks are. So if you need to use your favorite national park or favorite vista and apply it to your own body, then this is where you do it. Go in and notice your own vast deserts, your own bubbling streams, your own abundant wildlife. Your own ecosystem. Maybe tap into the metaphor of the sky, which is accessible to you right now. And go outside and notice the blue sky, the clouds, the storms, the sun, the moon. It's dark and clear at night, the stars, the planets, maybe even the Milky Way. It's your second natural park. Your first national park, though, is your real body, your real being, as it is. Your brain waves, your thoughts, your breath, your circulatory system, your muscles, your bones, your digestive organs, your skin, your nervous system, pain receptors. All of it in complicated interplay in an ecosystem and an ecology all of its own. That's why it is indeed its own national park. So a few more breaths here, just to notice, just to feel. And just let yourself be swept away and wowed by this. At some point you can deepen your breath. You can make little movements with fingers and with toes. You can expand that motion into hands and into feet. You can start to move legs around and arms around, make gentle motions with your body. You can start to rock your head from side to side. When you're ready, if you're lying on the floor, gently bend both knees and slowly roll over onto one side. Before you get up, visit that national park one last time. Cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for that amazing piece of nature that is your own being. Cultivate a sense of gratitude for your own unique embodiment in this universe. And then gently bring yourself up into a comfortable seated position When you get there, find a little bit of stability and some roots here in the lower body. Bring your hands together in front of heart center. I'll end practice by chanting Om. You can either join in or just listen to my voice. The inner light in me honors the inner light in you. Namaste.